So this new, I think it's a new phenomenon. The problems between men and women have existed forever, obviously. So to say that what's going on and the harassment and so on is because men don't respect women, that's the old story. It's been a problem since Adam and Eve. And I think it's gotten a lot better. I don't think there's any question that today men respect women more than in the past, in some way. And yet, there's all this stuff going on that is disturbing. The abuse of power, that's an old story. That's been around forever. I think what's new today is not that there's a lack of respect of men to women. I think that there is a lack of respect by both men and women for intimacy itself. This is not a man-woman issue. This is a question of what constitutes intimacy. And if we don't know the definition, if we don't know what is intimate, there's going to be a lot of misunderstanding, even with the best intentions. So there are men who do respect women, and yet they behave in a way that could be offensive. And if you ask them, why did you do that? Their answer would be, do what? It was nothing. And for a long time, like you say, it was nothing. It was acceptable. Since the 60s. I think we're paying the price now for that liberal attitude about intimacy, where free love became an ideal. You don't have to be so serious about it. You don't have to be so uptight about it. It's natural, it's fun, it feels good. Enjoy, relax. So at the time, it sounded at least decent. Make love, not war, and all that. But when you say free love, free of what? Free of charge? It meant free of commitment, free of attachment, free of emotional involvement, just recreational. And it really sounded nice. And for a long time, men and women enjoyed that new freedom. We felt liberated. Now we're paying the price, I think. Because if we don't have a definition for what intimacy is, we're going to cross the border, even unintentionally. So, like shaking hands. Could there be anything more innocent than that? And yet, if someone has intimate intentions, it can become creepy. Like you shake somebody's hand and he holds your hand 3 seconds longer than necessary. It's creepy. Now what happened? 3 seconds more, 3 seconds less. It's just a handshake. So the guy's a little enthusiastic. So what? It's a misunderstanding. And that can apply to so many circumstances. What, you thought I was being intimate? No, I was just being friendly. Oh, you thought I was just being friendly? No, I'm really into it. How are you supposed to know? So a good example would be closing the door. You walk into a woman's office and you close the door. And she says, leave the door open. And I say, why? What are you, suspicious? Are you accusing me of something? And it becomes nasty. So rather than insult the guy, you let him close the door. And then it's downhill from there, because if you're not going to object, where is it gonna? So I think the solution is not more legislation, more rules and regulations that will separate men and women from each other even more. That's not a good thing. What we need really is a definition of intimacy. Because what has happened is that intimacy is now a subjective experience. If you meant it as being intimate, if you were feeling intimate, then it's intimate. But if you weren't, then every act, every touch, every activity is non-intimate because you didn't intend it to be. In a sense, if we don't have a definition for intimacy, we're fooling ourselves. You can be doing something that is inherently, essentially intimate, and you convince yourself that it's not because you're not in the mood. That's dangerous. Intimate is intimate. It's a reality. There's a natural instinct, there's a natural response that comes from being intimate. And if you're being intimate and there's no response, the intimate is still intimate. You're just a little out of touch. You've become a little dulled. So, for example, years ago, these teenagers in Minnesota were going to go on a camping trip. And they had studied a little bit of Jewish law and so on. They decided they want to make it kosher. So they come to me and they say, how can we make this camping trip kosher? I said, who's going? I said, 8 of us, 4 boys, 4 girls. Where are you going? Out to the Boundary Water camping sites. We're going to be there for whatever, 7 days in a tent. I said, not kosher. And they said, we haven't talked about the food yet. I said, no, the whole thing is not kosher. And they were offended. And they said, we do everything together. We've always done everything together. We grew up together. In fact, last year we went camping, and one of the sleeping bags got a little too close to the fire and was destroyed, so we shared a sleeping bag. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. First of all, if I were you, I wouldn't be so proud about that. What is wrong with you? What do you mean nothing happened? Go see somebody professionally. This is a problem. But the real problem is sharing a sleeping bag is nothing. What did he mean when he said nothing happened? I mean, they didn't actually have sex? Okay. But to call sleeping together in a sleeping bag nothing, that's not true. It's not true. He is disciplined. He's used to this. He's turned off. He's jaded, or whatever it is. But being together in a sleeping bag is nothing? How can you say that? It is something. It's a major something. Even if nothing else happened, something very intimate happened. How do you call that nothing? So there's, I think, where the problem is. Intimacy is a reality. Being together in a sleeping bag? How do you define that as non-intimate? What, are you trying to fool Mother Nature? That is intimate. It's very intimate. It's as intimate as it gets. And to think nothing happened because she's not my type or I wasn't in the mood, that's your problem. That doesn't mean that the nature of the act has changed. Your subjective reaction has changed or is lacking. But the act itself is an act of intimacy. Now, is that also true if you close the door and there's no access, there's no window, there's no glass? You're very private. Is that not intimate? Sure it is. In fact, that's the beginning of all intimacy. The first step in intimacy is privacy. So, I had this experience, which I think is relevant here. we have this program for women. They come to the center in Minnesota. They stay for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, crash course on Judaism. And this is back in the 70s when women were nonconformist. They didn't want to play the beauty game. They weren't going to do the game that their parents played. And so they kind of neglected themselves. And some of them were very religious about it, and they neglected themselves badly. There was this one woman who had gone way, way too far. The other women would not share a room with her. Anyway, it was really bad. She needed to talk to me privately, and I had this tiny little office, closet, whatever we would call it. So we went inside. It was just big enough for two chairs on a little table. She was sitting next to the door, and she closed the door. I said, leave the door open just a bit. She said, why? I said, because a man and a woman should not be alone in a room with the door closed. She started to cry, sobbed her heart out. And I thought I had offended her. But eventually she said, this is the first time anyone has ever treated me like a woman. Now, if intimacy were a subjective phenomenon, she could close the door. There was nothing going on here. Close the door, do whatever you want. But that's just me. That doesn't change the nature of intimacy. So she closed the door, a man and a woman, it's intimate. I'm not in the mood, that's my problem. So we got to stop treating intimacy like a choice. If you want the touch to be intimate, then it's intimate. If you don't want it to be intimate, then it's not intimate. There's no such thing. A friendly touch, unless you're fighting, or you're a professional healer or doctor, a friendly touch is intimate. Do you both agree to be intimate to that degree? Then go for it. If there is no understanding, there's only the assumption, then you can't risk it. So, being alone in a room is by its very nature intimate. Before you close the door, make sure that that intimacy is welcome, if it's mutual. Now, religiously, even if it is mutual, if you're not married, it's wrong even if you both agree. But that's the religious side of it. But just by definition, if you're going to do something intimate, make sure that you're both on the same page. And what is intimate? Holding hands is intimate. Closing the door is intimate. Talking about intimate subjects is intimate. I think if we had that definition, we wouldn't need any laws. We would be fine. But when you reduce intimacy to fun and games gets you in trouble.
Partner with Rabbi Friedman. Visit itsgoodtoknow.org/support.